Section 21 of Dr. Deane's Way and Other Stories by Fay Huntington and Pansy. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Emma Russell's Motto by Fay Huntington. 4 happy people sat together in the pleasant breakfast parlor at Mr. Russell's. These were my dear friends, Mr. and Mrs. Russell, their daughter Emma, and myself. Emma, always one of my pets, seemed to me unusually bright and winning. I noticed a change in the child's face since I saw her last, a new glow, a brightness different from the old, merry look, an unwonted light in her eyes, as if some great joy was shining out there. I had wondered a little if this were fancy, and if not, what had happened. I shall tell you how I found out all about it. We were talking of the beauty of the morning, and it was glorious. The sun shone brightly, and the snow sparkled as though millions of diamonds were strewn over its pure, white surface. I did not wonder when Emma asked, "Papa, isn't this a good morning for the sleigh ride you promised me? It is so bright and sunshiny, and Robert says the roads are fine. Do, Papa, please take me to R." And Emma slipped around to her father's side and laid her hand coaxingly upon his shoulder. "Did I promise you a ride, you mischief?" asked Mr. Russell, smiling upon his little girl. "Now, Papa, of course you did, and I know you mean to take me, too." "How do you know?" "Why, I know you always mean to do things when you have that queer look about your mouth." After a little playful talk, the promise was given, and Emma fairly danced about the room in her delight. 11 o'clock was the hour, and long before the time, Emma had brought out an almost endless quantity of wraps, tippets, furs, and mittens, and was trying her best to curb her impatience, when her father came in, and calling her, said, "My little girl, can you bear a disappointment?" "No, Papa, I can't. If you mean that we are not going, I can't bear it. You promised, you know." And she gave a little laugh of triumph, for she knew her father kept his promises. "Yes, my daughter, and I shall keep my promise, unless you release me. And now I'll tell you why I wish you to do so. I was going to attend to some important business for old Mr. Warren, and Esquire Davis says that it will be necessary for Mr. Warren to go to R himself. So I came up to ask you to give your place in the sleigh to him for this morning." "But, Papa," urged Emma, "why can't he go in the cars and meet you there? I'm all ready. I can't stay at home now." And eyes and voice were full of tears. "My child, Mr. Warren is an old man, and an invalid. He could not well go alone." Thus speaking in a very grave tone, Mr. Russell added, "Emma, remember your motto." With a little start, Emma answered sadly, "I forgot. I'll try to be willing to do as you wish, but—" A great sob choked her, and she ran away to her own room. I remembered the passionate fits of weeping which she used to give way to, and looked forward to her return to the parlor with swollen eyelids and sober face. Great was my surprise when she came down smiling, with the same bright glow in her eyes that I had noticed before. She had a bit of canvas and some zephyrs in her work-basket, and came over to my corner, saying, "Now, Miss Fay, since I can't go to ride, won't it be a nice time to learn that stitch you were to show me? That is, if you have time." I would gladly have set aside far more important matters than any I had on hand that morning, for the sake of the dear child. I knew that it was a trial to give up the ride, for her father did not often find time for sleigh rides and riding out with Robert perched up on the driver's seat, and she alone in the sleigh was not pleasant. Together we mastered the new stitch, and dinner time soon came, and with it Mr. Russell, greeting Emma with, "Well, have you moped the morning away, and made the house too gloomy for anybody to stay in?" She answered promptly, "No, sir. Miss Fay and I have had a splendid time, haven't we?" appealing to me. "I think," continued Mr. Russell, "that if you could have heard Mr. Warren thank me, you would have felt repaid for your sacrifice." "I am not a bit sorry, papa," insisted the little girl. After dinner, as Mr. Russell was putting on his overcoat, he turned back from the hall to say, "Emma, I think of driving over to A with the large sleigh. If you know of 3 or 4 little girls, besides yourself, who would like to go, have them here at 4 o'clock. Tell your mother that we will take supper at A, and return before 9 this evening." He was off before Emma, in her surprise and bewilderment, could stammer out a word. When she realized what her father had been saying, she exclaimed, "Oh my! Won't it be grand to ride after those splendid horses with papa! Have supper at a great hotel with a lot of girls! Then to ride home by moonlight! Oh, Miss Fay, won't that be too splendid for anything!" And Emma suddenly found that the second dish of pudding, for which she had just called, was a very unnecessary addition to her dinner. "Now, mamma, who will I ask? Can Robert take my notes, or will I go myself? I think I'd better go. I can't keep quiet long enough to write notes. Of course, I'll have Annie Gates. Then there's Mary Lee, and the Murrays. That will be 6 with papa." As she talked, she was rapidly cloaking and hooding herself, and now danced away, but turned back to say, "Mamma, what do you think? Suppose I don't ask the Murrays this time? There's Amy Nichols, who never gets any rides, and Fanny Green. We don't like her very well at school, and I don't think she treated me very well about that concert matter. But, you know, mamma, she is poor, and thinks we girls who have rich fathers feel above her. Don't you think she would like going to A and having a grand supper for once? I'll have papa order oyster pie and lots of nice things. Shall I ask Amy and Fanny or the Murrays?" she asked, in concluding her somewhat mixed and hurried remarks. "If you do not think Fanny will spoil your pleasure, ask her by all means," answered Mrs. Russell. "I guess she will be good for once," laughed Emma, "but I must hurry." 5 happier little girls than those who, wrapped in soft furs, tucked in among the bright cushions and fleecy robes of Mr. Russell's grand sleigh, dashed down the avenue, and out into the street, and away out of sight, neither you nor I have ever seen. That evening, after their return, nestling down by my side, Emma talked over the ride. The beginning and ending of the story was, "Such a grand time!" "And to think," she said, "that I came near losing it all by going to R this morning. I shall be thankful to old Mr. Warren as long as I live, for having some bothering business to keep me at home." "Emma," I said, "will you tell me how you happened to give up that morning ride, without—" Here I stopped. She finished the sentence. "Without a storm of tears and fretting that lasted half a day? That's what you mean. Well, I'll tell you, Miss Fay." And her voice was grave, but full of peace. "I am trying to be like Jesus. You heard what papa said about my motto? The motto is, 'Remember Jesus.' Somehow, when I do that, the angry goes right out of my heart. The sorry stayed a good while this morning, but afterwards I was glad that I could help that poor old man by staying at home." Here was the secret. I knew now what was the change in the child's face. I knew that it was the Saviour's love that filled her heart and shone out in her eyes, that made her so thoughtful of others' happiness, that helped her to put away the old fretfulness, and kept her from bursts of passion. Dear children, the same Saviour waits to fill your hearts with this love and peace. End of section 21.